Welcome everybody to Building an ADA Compliant Syllabus. My name is Penelope Moon, and it's my great privilege to direct the Center for Teaching and Learning here at the University of Washington. I'm also part of the Teaching at UW network, which is sponsoring this session today. Today's session is going to demonstrate how to build a very basic syllabus in Canvas in ways that align with the recently updated accessibility standards in the Americans with Disability Act. The skills you'll learn today will be useful beyond the syllabus and will help you improve the accessibility of other course materials you may be making in Canvas or even in Word. We're focusing on building a syllabus in Canvas because doing so, rather than uploading a PDF or Word document or emailing an attachment to students, is a much more accessible practice. It makes your syllabus available to students 24/7. It makes it easier to edit, and more importantly, the updates you make to your syllabus are immediately available to students if you build it in Canvas. If you build it in Canvas, it's built in HTML, which is much more accessible. It's more responsive and adaptable to different screen sizes. It's inherently easier for screen readers to read, and it doesn't require students to download anything. And very important, it's more easily accessed by disability resources for students when there's a formal accommodation request. The deadline for compliance with the new updated standards is April 2026, which isn't a lot of time. So today's session is intentionally focused on the core skills needed to build a super basic syllabus. We're going to build a vanilla syllabus today. These skills should help you get to basic compliance. Our hope is that you'll be able to build on these skills over time and acquire higher level skills you can use to build something more than just a basic vanilla syllabus. But focusing on the basics right now makes sense given the approaching deadline. Without further ado, I want to turn things over to our wonderful facilitator today, Mary Colleen Jenkins. Mary Colleen is Instructional Accessibility Specialist with UW-IT. Go ahead, Mary Colleen.
Thank you, Pen. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So you're going to see a very basic open Canvas page, a blank one. And I'm going to go through, I'm going to ask Jacob to put my agenda in the chat just so you can see what we're going to cover in the next 30 minutes. And I'm going to try to do a good job with time. First, we're going to do a quick tour of some key features for today in Canvas. A lot of you are probably already familiar with these, but we're going to do a quick little tour. And then today we're going to cover 3 specific skills for accessibility. Those are structured headings, formatted lists, and meaningful link text. And then we'll have a quick wrap up. I'm going to do a little demo of each of these skills as we go. And just at the end, I'm going to stick around after the session for about 15 minutes for Q&A. So just want you to be aware of that as we go. So right now, you should be able to see, I think there is a hand up in the chat. So Jacob, I don't know if you want to reach out to that, the person with the question. I'm going to go through all this and then we'll have time for a little bit Q&A at the end. So you should be seeing on the screen a basic blank Canvas page, and I'm going to go to the default syllabus page in Canvas. Not everyone's aware that this is a place where you can build your syllabus. So in the navigation bar, which has all the links that you would see for your Canvas page, there is one called Syllabus. I have moved it up in my navigation pane, so it's at the top. So we're looking along the left side of the screen right here. I'm going to click on that, and that opens the default syllabus page in Canvas. And when you open that, a lot of people don't realize you can actually build a whole syllabus in this page because of how it's described up here by the Canvas default. So what you're seeing is there's 2 default headings on this Canvas syllabus page. One is course Canvas, and then below is the course summary. These are default headings. You can't change these. You can't customize these. The reason I used to be confused about this is this description says the syllabus page shows a table-oriented view of the course schedule and basics, and then it goes on to say you can add notes. What we're going to do today is make this page the full syllabus, or at least the framework for a syllabus, and you can do that yourself. The course summary here, this is a list of some sample surveys that I had from a form class. I just wanted to see what it looked like. This is basically a list of assignments that if you build assignments in Canvas, they're going to automatically populate here. And I don't like the name. It's not a summary, it's a list of assignments. And I think I'd want to show you how to get rid of that because it can be confusing to students if they see this summary along with everything else. So I just want you to see what it looks like first. To get into the course syllabus page, you go up to the top right hand corner, there's an edit button. You're probably familiar with this if you've been using Canvas. You click on that, that opens the page up for you. And again, we still have that course syllabus heading. It's going to stay there. And if you scroll down a little bit, that course summary is still appearing. You cannot edit it. That's why it's below the text box there. So what I want to point out about Canvas, and Penn mentioned already that the things you learned today you can apply to any sort of document you're creating regardless of the tool, so Microsoft Word or Google or Canvas. You'll see that the toolbars and the menus are the same that you have probably recognized from other places that you create content. So we have the menu bar, which offers the tabs that show you how to, maintain and build your content. Typical wording, edit, view, insert, format, tools table. So that should be familiar to you if you use other authoring tools like Microsoft Word and Google. There's a toolbar horizontally across the top of the text box. That's where you find the typical things, font size, paragraph, the heading styles, some styling tools like bolding, italics, etc. There's a place to add links, insert photos, etc., images and media. And then we can open up the second row, which has some more tools that you can use. And again, they're pretty universal, regardless of what you're doing. That's why I like Canvas. It keeps it familiar. The three tools we're really going to focus on these toolbars and in the menu are the heading styles tool, which is, you can see it says paragraph at the top, and there's a drop-down menu. It opens up and it has different levels of headings in it. So we're going to look at that tool. We're going to look at this little icon. It looks like a link of a chain. You might be familiar with other applications. This is where you add a link, a hyperlink. We're going to be looking at this, and it has a drop down and allows you a couple choices there. And then we're going to look at the formatted list tool, where you create bullet lists. And probably most, if not many of you, already use this tool and probably already use the link tool. So we're going to be looking at things that you're used to. Down below, one thing I want to show you, there's another little toolbar below the text box. I just want to point out this little icon. It's the universal icon for accessibility. It's a little human with arms sticking out. That's where you can find the accessibility checker for this page. We're not going to talk about accessibility checkers today, but we will have an info session on those in the next academic year. Another thing I want to show you is this little phrase underneath the content box on the left side. There's a checkbox that says show course summary. And I just mentioned a minute ago that sometimes students can find that list of assignments to be overwhelming or confusing when they see it in the syllabus. And so this allows you to uncheck that box, which makes it disappear from the view in the course summary. So I'm going to just save I unchecked it. I'm going to save this Canvas page by clicking Update Syllabus. I wish it said Save instead of Update, but this is basically the Save button. If I click it, you'll see that course outline is gone. So that list of assignments is gone by me checking that box. That's a decision you can make on your own, but I recommend avoid, delete or hiding that when you can. Okay. And again, I'm going to be going through a lot of content, so we're not going to be taking questions as we go, but hopefully you'll have time to stick around at the end. We'll collect those questions, or you can ask me after the session is over. Okay, so let's get to skill number one, and that is building structured headings into your Canvas syllabus. And again, this is a good thing to do in any document you're creating. So I'm going to copy and paste from my document some sample headings that you might see in a syllabus. And again, like Penn said, this can be very basic, super basic. So some sample headings you might see are course information or course description, policies, additional resources. Um, and I want to just talk briefly about HTML. Penn mentioned in the introduction that Canvas is a great tool because it's built on HTML. That's the hidden language behind this text box. So we're using words and we're using these tools to set up our content. But behind the scenes, there's like all this computer code is going on, and that's HTML. We don't need to know HTML or even care about it too much, as long as we're using the tools in the platform to like build or lock in place the formatting that's going to help it be accessible. And so that's what I'm going to show you now. I like to compare it to if, I can drive a car without being a mechanic. I don't need to know about the engine in order to drive and maintain my car. I can just go ahead and do it. It's the same thing with HTML. It's the engine. We don't have to worry about it as long as we're using the tools to maintain it. So it's important to build structured headings because if a student is listening to our content by using a screen reader, they can hear what the headings are if we build them in properly. So this is how I used to do headings before I was really familiar with accessibility skills. I would highlight a phrase, or I would highlight the content I wanted to be a header, and I would say, I'm going to make it bigger so it's a heading. So I might go and make it a bigger font manually. Okay, so that looks bigger, right? And I might say, I want to make it even bolder so it's easier to see as a heading. So I might manually click on the bold. And that looks like a heading. It's bigger, it's bolder, it's clear. For students who can see or who choose to look at our content, that looks like a heading. But it's not built into the structure of our page as a heading. And I can tell that because it looks bigger, it looks bolder, but if I put my cursor in there, notice this word up here on the top of that headings tool I showed you, that says paragraph. When I click on the drop-down menu, there's a check mark by paragraph. So what that's telling me is the HTML in the background, the hidden language, is still seeing that as a regular font. It's not seeing it as a heading. However, if I use the tool, like these are all main headings in my syllabus. If I use the tool to select heading 2, which is the level we choose for main headings in our content, if I do this, it not only makes that bigger, so it looks like a heading, but notice it says heading 2 at the top of the toolbar. And if I put my cursor in one of these headings and I do the drop-down menu, it's going to show a check mark by the heading 2. That tells me that I have locked the heading into not only the visual part of Canvas, but also that hidden language in the back. And so when a student who is using a screen reader is listening, this will announce the heading level. It will say begin heading level 2, course information. Heading level 2, course description. So that listener is going to have a sense of what the headings are, okay? And I'm going to kind of add a little more to this. So we want to do subheadings a lot of times in our syllabus. So I might add some additional subheadings here. So I'm going to do under course information, I might have some subheadings like contact information, meeting times and locations, required texts. Under course description, maybe I would have something like, and again, this is bare bones here. Oops. Okay, let me do it. Come on. Okay, here we go. Under course description, I might have learning objectives or the roadmap, the schedule or something. Under policies, and I'm going to add a little paragraph here, I might have something like attendance grading and maybe religious accommodations policy. Okay. These are still, I've added these subheadings, but they're still in paragraph form because I put my cursor in there. I can see it's paragraph form. I want to make these heading level 3 because they're subheadings from the main heading. And once I do that and highlight it and do the drop down and select it, you can see, you can test it. It's heading level 3. I can put my cursor in here, do the drop down. The check mark is by heading level 3. Okay. So this is going to allow the student or colleague listening through a screen reader to hear those headings, those subheadings read out loud. So again, it would be something like begin heading level 3 attendance. And then we would have, or religious accommodations, and then we would have the paragraph content below them. So again, we're locking in the formatting. So all that magic that happens that we don't see is locking it into place so the structure is clear to someone who's listening to it. Okay. Um, I'm going to update the syllabus really quickly so you can see what it looks like. Again, yours is going to be having paragraphs between all these things, but I just want you to see a little bit of the difference. You can style it differently once you've locked those things into place. So let's say I wanted course information to be larger. Oops, sorry about that. If I wanted it to be a larger or smaller font, I can choose that. I can make it 24-point font, but it remains a heading 2. So you have some control over what it looks like once you've locked that into place. Okay, I know that was really quick, but I'm going to kind of move forward a little bit. I do want to say one thing really quickly before I move on, though. You might think, why does it start with heading 2? Where's heading 1? And this is one thing I love about Canvas. Canvas doesn't let you make a mistake. With the heading level 1 is actually the title of the page. And so when you're creating a custom page, you're going to have a blank text box for the heading where you put in whatever heading you want. That's the heading 1. So Canvas doesn't allow you to accidentally put a heading 1 um, inside the page. Okay. All right. So let's go to our next skill. I know that went a little fast, but we got a lot to cover here. Um, so I'm going to talk about um, formatted lists next. And again, this is a tool that a lot of people already use all the time, but you may not realize how important it is for accessibility. So I'm going to go back to the toolbar and click on the little hamburger menu. Some people call these 3 vertical dots. And I'm going to go ahead and use the tools in the formatted list tool. And when you do the drop down, you see you can choose different types of bullet lists, different styles, or you can do number list, alphabetical list, or Roman numeral list. It's very simplistic in Canvas, which is fine. So the reason we're going to focus on these lists, which seem kind of obvious, is we often use tables in syllabi. Tables are notoriously inaccessible unless you know certain small technical skills to make sure you're making an accessible table. And so if we're doing a really bare bones accessible syllabus, you might want to default to using formatted lists instead of a table to organize content. So here's how this works. And this is when I'm going to talk about learning objectives as an example. So learning objectives is a typical section we might have in our syllabus. And we often do them in list form. But a common phrase we might have in our learning objectives section would be, upon completion of this course, students will be able to, and then we'll list, 3 to 4 learning objectives for that course. So if we, instead of having a table, a small table showing us what the learning objectives are, or instead of just having a paragraph of learning objectives, it's really more easy for students to understand and comprehend if it's in a list form. It's easier to absorb and to skim and to understand that way. So I will just highlight my learning objectives list, and I can choose a number. I'm gonna number. We're gonna have 4 learning objectives for this quarter. These are the 4. And what will happen with a screen reader is a screen reader or someone listening will hear, upon completion of this course, students will be able to, and then it will read, begin Wait, let me see if with the actual link. Begin bulleted list or numbered list with 4 items. I wanted to get the exact phrasing there. So it would say begin number list with 4 items, and then it would read item 1 of 4 and read that first one. Then item 2 of 4 and read the next one. Item 3 of 4 and so on. The value of that is when a student is listening to this content, either through a screen reader or because they've chosen an alternative format, they're going to be able to orient themselves inside that list. So if they are not seeing that list, they're hearing immediately there are 4 items here. Listen for 4. And they're going to know when they get to item 2 of 4, they're going to know where they are in that list because again, they're not seeing it, they're hearing it. So that's a super valuable accessibility feature for students. The same thing with, like, let's say you have a course roadmap and instead of having a big complex table about what's happening in week 1, week 2, week 3, you can have a structured bullet list, um, and you can do it any number of ways that you want to. I have a couple different phrases here, but let's say you wanted to list weeks 1 through 10. You're going to have a theme or a topic for each week, and then maybe 3 specific units or 3 topics within that. You can do a bullet list again, and you don't need to make this a number list. Sorry about this. It's scrolling faster than I am ready for. If you already have a number in your description, you don't need to repeat it with another number list. So you can have a bullet list here, and then you can have sub bullets as well. So you can have a week 1 theme for the week with specific topics, or you can call it week 2 topic. This is a way to avoid having trying to build a table when you can just do a bullet list. That's pretty easy to skim. And again, someone listening will hear these lists being read that will allow them to orient themselves and have a sense of the structure. It gives them an outline to imagine for the content. Okay, so that's why we do lists. And again, tables are a step up. And as Penn mentioned before, we're going at baseline here today. And then once you get familiar with this kind of thing, if you want to step up to a table, then you would want to learn, the best practices for creating those tables. Okay, I think we're doing okay on time, which makes me really happy. So the next thing we're going to talk about is link text. We share links all the time in emails, and we share them with our students. Sometimes they're a list of links, sometimes they're embedded in paragraphs. And I want to show you the best practice for creating accessible links, and then I'll tell you why. So I'm going to go to this religious accommodations policy. This is a recommended statement to have in syllabi. And I want to show you this in a paragraph form instead of a list form. So we have this paragraph, Washington state law requiring a policy for accommodation for student absences or hardships due to reasons of faith, conscience, or for organized religious activities. I'm kind of swishing that around a bit. Then it says UW's policy, including more information about how to request an accommodation, is available at, and then there's this really long URL, with all the HTTPS and all the stuff. And then there's another sentence, accommodations must be requested within the first 2 weeks of this course using the form found at, and then there's another long URL. These are live links. They're links that work. They're going to take us to the page we want to be in. But the problem with them is they're a really long URL. And so even for students who are seeing the page and reading it, that's a lot to absorb. If they've read carefully, they're going to know what's coming. But do students really read our syllabi carefully all the time? Not necessarily. So we want to make sure that if they're skimming it, they're going to get the information, even if they're not deeply reading it. For a listener, for a student who's relying on listening to the content, the problem is they're going to hear every single character and symbol in that whole URL as they're listening to this page. So a screen reader user is going to hear https://registrar.washington.edu/ all of it is going to be read character by character. So imagine if you listen to your content all day long because that's how you access your course information. Imagine hearing all those URLs, especially if there are multiple ones in a list or multiple ones on a page. So what we want to do for everyone, but particularly for people listening, is we want to create meaningful link text with a phrase that replaces that URL. And a specific phrase, not a click here or a learn more, but something specific. So I'm going to show you how to do that. And first thing I'm going to do is get rid of these big URLs. And then I'll show you how to replace them. So, and you're probably familiar with, the link, how to add a link, but I'm going to show you just in case. So I'm going to put my cursor where I want the URL to be. And I'm going to go up to that little link icon and I'm going to do the drop down menu. In Canvas, it's pretty cool. It lets us do external links to websites outside and it allows us to do internal links. We're going to focus on the external link because this is a website outside of our Canvas page. So I'm going to click on that and it opens this insert link field. And it has two fields. One is for text, one is for link. I'm going to put that link in the link field, that long policy link. And then I'm going to write a text or phrase that's going to replace that visually or audibly for my students. So that link is for the religious accommodations policy page. So I'm going to put that in the text box. And then I'm going to click done. And look what it shows. I now have a phrase that is a live link instead of that long URL. So the student is going to hear begin link religious accommodation policy page. So they know it's a link and they know where it's going. And the same thing will happen at the next one. The original URL was for the form they need to have filled out so they can get accommodations for their religious accommodation. Go up to the link, external link again, because it's not within my Canvas page. It's another website. I'm going to copy and paste the link in there. And then I'm going to put a phrase, a specific phrase in the text and hit done. And that's replacing that with the phrase religious accommodations request form. One little note here, it's important to have these because one is a policy page and one is a request form, but they look really similar. So this allows us to differentiate between the two. And I see we're already at 11:28 here. So I'm gonna update the syllabus or save it so you can see what it looks like now that we've finished all these 3 items. And you'll see these are all showing up. The religious accommodations policy is here. It has a little additional icon to show it's a live link. And before I finish, I want to show you something that a lot of people are not aware of, and this is one of my favorite features of Canvas. It's this little icon by the heading on this page. This will be on any Canvas page that you create, the heading. There's a little icon, and I've hovered near it. It's like a thick A with a download arrow, and it says alternative formats. If I click on it, it opens an alternative formats menu, and there are 5 different ways students can download this Canvas page and customize their learning. And one of these is audio. So they can download an MP3 file to listen to the Canvas page. So if they have a long commute and they're driving home, they can be listening to your Canvas page as they go. So this is another reason that you don't have to have a visual disability or learning disability to decide to listen to content.
For more information on making accessible course content, explore the Inclusion and Access dropdown in the navigation menu on the Teaching at UW website at teaching.uw.edu.